We are live, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be taking a look, as we always do, at the beautiful and colorful charts in the crypto world. Now, aside from whatever price direction it may be going, the best thing we try to do here is just learn as much as possible, because that always reminds us that knowledge is powerful. And with that in mind, basically, let's dive right in. Boom. Okay. So here we are. Here's Bitcoin on the weekly chart, and what a beautiful little chart this is. I remember these days back in 2017 when we were originally on our way up to $20,000. This was like Christmas every step of the way. And, you know, we charted every move up relatively well. I remember even when we got to the $8,000 area, I remember saying, hey, shit, guys, I'm worried that it's going to go to $20,000, and then Bitcoin's going to drop all the way down to around $3,000, and we're going to be in a bear market for another year and a half, 2 years. Well, that's what happened, and then that's also what happened. Now, this new thing that's happening makes less sense to me than the other things that happened. Now, I don't really need anything to make sense for me to have any appreciation for it. I actually very much so enjoy the nonsensical, because anything that is beyond my comprehension is generally a beautiful thing. I take pride in the things I don't comprehend because they're generally beyond my capability to understand, and I actually like that. So today's title of the show is $4,200 or $100,000. Now, the reason I named this show that particular title is because I think that there's a great way to look at this. Now, everyone kind of gets stuck in the moon Lambo, generality. And I think what's important here is to remember that, basically exposure to this space is extremely important. Right? So let's say even if it were to just go up straight from $8,000 to, let's say, $20,000 to $100,000, it's a real, I think what I heard said best is this is an asymmetrical investment, and it's always been that way. You know, when it was $90, it's like, oh, okay, it might not be worth anything. And that's always been the bet. The bet on Bitcoin has always been it might be worth nothing or a bunch of something. So I think because you have such a counterbalance between the two, it's important to remember that, even if it drops down to $0 from this particular point, well, first that would signal a failure of one of the greatest economic experiments we've seen in mankind up to date, which would be quite a displeasing thing to witness. But that's always been the bet. The bet has always been it might go to zero. So I guess, what's difficult, I had a family asking me about, when should we buy Bitcoin? Is it now, or do we let it drop down? And, I think the best answer for most people is to probably just try buying a small amount once every 2 weeks, a month, whatever fits your budget, no matter what price it's at. Because I think generally what holds people back is making that first buy. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy $10,000 worth, so I'm going to wait. Instead of just spending $100 figuring it out, waiting, spending another $100 figuring it out, waiting, spending $1,000 figuring it out further. I think most generally people need to invest in actually educating themselves about how this stuff works, and in that process also buying and acquiring. So for myself, when I first bought Bitcoin, this crazy elusive internet money back in the day, it was very hard to do. There were no easy on-ramps. I had to go through some crazy exchange. Local Bitcoins is one of the only ways to do it back in Canada. It was a very abstract thing to do, was to try to purchase Bitcoin like online, or there was no easy way to do it. So because things have gotten consistently easier, and I try to recommend to people, if you have no exposure to this space, shit, go to Coinbase and buy 10 bucks worth. Don't worry about what price it's asked to think, oh, I want to spend this much at this price. Just start investing in understanding what the heck is going on. Because again, this is an asymmetrical bet. It could be worth nothing, or it could be worth hundreds of thousands to maybe even millions of dollars per Bitcoin. And that's always one of the crazy things to try to take in. And I think it's because of that, it's worth the bet. So I never bet against Bitcoin. I don't. Like, even when we're looking at this ABC retracement that we had drawn out the other day, it's not that I'm married to this answer. This just represents a wave of possibilities, especially like we saw in the other alternative digital asset space. Here with Raven on the 1 hour versus the drop that we saw in Bitcoin, right? So if you were to have able to pivot it into Bitcoin, like we did, some of us were able to do in the Bear family here. Shout out to all the private Bear members who rode some of these waves. Again, none of this investment advice, but for those of you that follow your own intuition and just use as much information as possible, Raven represented a 40% gain off of Bitcoin's, what was this, 10% drop? almost to the T, yes, 13% drop, right? And this is actually a slight bit before, it was a few days before. So really what I do, instead of betting against Bitcoin, I actually generally pivot into underappreciated or undervalued assets. You know, we were looking at Digibyte the other day as well, and these are all proof of work tokens. These all have basically, they're all Bitcoins. As I've referred to them, these are essentially baby Bitcoins in my view, and because of that I think that they're extremely undervalued. Let's call them all Beanie Babies. Let's imagine that to some degree Kevin O'Leary's right, he just has no fucking clue what he's talking about. So because he has no clue what he's talking about, he doesn't really understand. I mean, this is a guy that buys watches thinking they're a great investment. Shows you how fucking stupid Kevin O'Leary is. Buy watches, what a dingleberry nutsack. Look, guy, pay attention, right? Everything is a collectible. There is no inherent or intrinsic value to anything. I mean, even property, the only intrinsic value that it has is related to the fact that the survival method that's used for having shelter, etc., can be very valuable to someone that wants a roof over their head. But that's not intrinsic. That's only intrinsic to the fact that people like to survive comfortably. There's no real value to any of that. If you remove humans from the equation, all is lost. And that's what I think is generally misunderstood about the concept here. So the fact that someone would speak so poorly about Bitcoin yet buy collectible watches is kind of fucking stupid. So I wouldn't listen to the mainstream gawkers at this particular point, because I think generally understanding what's going on in any form of asset space is important. It will help you understand your, I guess, your exposure to any of the other areas of risk that you might be taking on. So maybe you have a portfolio and you own property and you own gold and silver and you've got exposure to the S&P 500, and maybe you even have exposure to some of the emerging markets like anyways, the point of this is everyone's coming from a very different point in life, where they are and what it is they're trying to manage. Whether they're just at an internal wealth point, maybe you're 20 years old, you're starting off with nothing in your pocketbook, to people that might have tens to hundreds of millions of dollars that are able to invest into this space. And that's why I suggest everyone just find exposure to this space in any way possible. I should have kept that a stronger indicator the whole time, because I get too caught up in trading these waves like a little dolphin that I forget that there are other people in this space that are brand new to here and they're not necessarily interested in just trading. They're like, oh, I just want to get entry, right? So they want to buy everything all at once. Like, oh, when's the best entry point? That's why there's so many people like, oh, it didn't go to $1,200. It's like, look, if you really understood what's taking place here, you're going to continually try to invest yourself into understanding what's happening, because it is far beyond the comprehension of most people. Even myself, like I said, this whole space is becoming incomprehensible because we have to imagine what technology does on the long term. Anyway, so tokens like Digibyte, Raven, Dash, Flow, these are all really interesting to me off the pivot of like the wake of Bitcoin. Every time Bitcoin moves, we see these big spikes. Here with Flow, we saw a 50% gain, and this represents a big move in comparison with Bitcoin. So everyone gets hyped up about Bitcoin. We're over here looking at 40% moves every 4 fucking days or something, right? So I think people get too caught up in just what Bitcoin's doing and ignore the entire market space. And I believe that's because the Bitcoin maximalists have kind of pushed it into the direction where it's like, oh, it's only Bitcoin can survive, and that's what will signal the market moving in the correct direction. But I don't actually live in that camp. I live in the camp that I think that every part of this ecosystem is beneficial, because it brings more attention, it brings more understanding, it brings more development, and more importantly, it also brings more speculation. And regardless of what people think or not, speculation is an important part of driving fundamental analysis, because that's all price ever fucking is. There's almost hardly ever a moment in time when an asset sits exactly at the price that it should be fundamentally set at. There's all this crazy behavior from people that are fucking emotional, myself included, about these prices, right? The difference between $4,200 and $100,000. And again, that's why I think regardless of whatever price it's going to go to in the next month or two, because again, I mean, sometimes charting it has, let's use Ravencoin for an example, okay? When we were charting Ravencoin on the daily about, 2 months ago in the beginning of March, I looked at exit areas around here, around the 1260 mark and the 900 mark. And I remember when I said that, everyone's like, oh, you're crazy, it's going to go so much higher, like Ravencoin to $1, and these are obvious sell signs to me. I've gotten used to hearing this nonsense talk, and this is what's kind of awkward about Bitcoin, is that talk's taking place, yet the steam engine doesn't seem to be slowing down. So I don't bet against Bitcoin. I never suggest anyone bet against Bitcoin. It's not a smart thing to do. But what we've noticed in the past is that there is a range of possibility where for me, there's a particular area where there's profit taking, and then I just reinvest all of any of what this is back into things like Arcane Bear, back into my ginger tonic company, back into the other assets like the property, because I need all of those things to counterbalance a really nicely well-maintained portfolio for who I am. I want to go sit outside and play music while I'm enjoying the sound of the leaves blow amongst the wind, you know, and the way the sound of the ants eating the grass kind of tapers off in the distance. Those things are more valuable to me than money ever will be. Now, money can allow you the time and the freedom to enjoy these types of things, but because I'm such an abstract person and the way I view my wealth is very internal, I think everyone really needs to define their own investment curriculum for what it is they want to do. More money means more responsibility. Well, I have a friend that has hundreds of millions of dollars in assets. And one of the things he always says is, are you prepared for success? And it's a great fucking mantra, because most people are not prepared for success. If you gave most people $10 million tomorrow, they're going to fucking squander it away just as quickly as they got it, because they have no clue how to manage wealth. Generally, the people that are able to acquire and consistently grow are successful at it, not because they just want to get rich quick, but because they've devised a mechanism and a strategy to consistently every year work on things that grow their portfolio. And that's what we want to try to do here, is remind everyone that in the Bitcoin, the blockchain space, any alternative asset, any business, whatever it might be, wealth, the concept of richness, the value of like your assets, this is a much more broad term perspective. And I think the more people internalize that, the easier it is to come up with what makes you feel wealthy. And once you grasp that gratitude of understanding, then there's no stopping you. Abundance will just break down your door. You know, the other day I was talking about, like, oh, I was so excited I had a date. And then look, lo and behold, I had another date. A woman wanted to take me out for dinner. I was like, Jesus, once you start opening your mind and getting excited about what's there, the universe starts to respond. And I know this is kind of woo-woo talk, but there's a reason why we have PhDs in biology and physics come on the show and talk about the multi-dimensional holographic universe and reality, is because I believe that's what's happening. I think that this is there's a lot more going on here than just, oh, the acquiring of a little bit of extra money to play in this space. This has always been a spiritual journey for me, so I try to conduct my life between this rather material and physical essence. Anyways, let's go into Bitcoin before I rant a little off. Thank you all for joining us today. Smash, or actually, hold on, gently touch that like button if you guys can. I really appreciate it. YouTube really likes it as well. It brings in more views, and I love the views. Love the views. I could just eat views. View eating. I'm view hungry. Anyways, I have no idea what I'm saying. Okay, so here we're looking at Bitcoin in the daily. It's a little sharper. Again, we're not able to close. We haven't closed above the previous volume in candles yet. So this is a really important time to keep an eye on. So as we roll through the time frames, again, this is what I find extremely important. Is keep an eye on all the indicators. Here, this really nice colorful one, you guys, this is called the Bear Claw. You can download it by following us on TradingView, and then going scripts here. Let's go to Arcane Bear. You can follow us on TradingView. We're going to produce more of these, but we've got some scripts you guys can download. This particular one is called the Bear Claw. Here, remember to give it a like, leave us a comment, and again, follow us here on TradingView. We do publish here as well. We're going to start publishing on here instead of Twitter, just because this makes more sense for us, because we kind of suck at Twitter. I mean, we do better for inspirational posts. I make a post about Bitcoin, no one cares. I make a post about being like enjoying who you are as a human being and diving into the purpose of life, and it gets like 40 likes. So we're definitely gonna Twitter. we gotta use what we're good at where we're good at. So download the Bear Claw here. Again, this is the indicator that we're using. I use this one often because it represents a bunch of descending EMAs. Again, if we go to I can actually really quickly show you guys the Bear Claw settings. It's just, what is this? So it's the 5, the 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, up to, what is it, the 50, 60 EMA or 200 EMA down here, 200 EMAs. Anyways, see how we've hit the middle of the bar and bounced right back up? Everything's looking good on the 6 hour, but it's when we start to roll in that things, a different story might start to be unfolding. So on the 4 hour, we actually had a big short signal come in at 7,900. It brought that all the way down to 6,950. We bounced right off the bottom of the Bear Claw, which was actually a positive sign, again, decreasing the likelihood of this ABC wave. Now, as we break out of this, the top of this indicator, what we want to do is roll down through the time frames. So again, what's really important here, ladies and gentlemen, I think that is if you're interested in learning technical analysis, seeing what it's good for, it's a really great tool to have long term, because if you're like me, you're going to spend the next 10, 20, 30, 40, hopefully 50, 60 years paying attention to these fun things because it's extremely entertaining to us. It's not just here, I'm not just here to, I really like this. This is very entertaining to me, and it adds a part to my day that I really enjoy. I wake up, I grab my coffee, I try to make some assessments about what's going on in the emotional world. How do I feel? How are people talking? You know, we roll over here, we can go, okay, well, what's the crypto greed index? This kind of thing, right? Oh, look, see, the greed index has gone down to 70. We were peaked out at 78 last week. So we're in a bit more of a healthy space. You know, I think it's important to do. The reason I like doing this is because, first off, we're trying to chart emotions. This is basically the emotion of a technology that we're seeing unfold before our eyes. And we're seeing it rather irrationally. So as we go into the 30-minute, this is where the story starts to get a little more interesting. And this is generally what I do, is I start to watch it on the much closer time frames. Currently we have the 200 below the the 100 below the 50, so we were on it, we were headed towards a downtrend. We did have the crossover on the 30-minute here yesterday during our peak, so now we really want to watch to see if we break down below around 77.50. So again, what I'm going to do, the same thing as last time, guys. You know, build a strategy, follow it. I'm going to add an alert right here for 77.35 because I already have my alert for the breakout at 84.44. Right? So these are two important areas that I'm looking out for, because this is gonna help me understand the direction that it goes through for the next 4, 6, 12, 24 hours, right? Now when we go down to the minutia, the like real crux of everything, you start to see Bitcoin at the 1 minute, and this, again, generally don't make moves off what's going on in the 1 minute here, ladies and gentlemen, because it's just it's like chaotic. It'll almost scare you, like, oh my God, it's going up, it's going down, but this is only on the 1 minute chart. So there's a lot of data that takes place here that's not all that useful for you. Now, again, we actually see right off the bat here, Bitcoin's 50 and 100 EMAs just barely touched here at 79.60, bounced up, and then now they're about to cross again. So this is a really important on the 1 minute idea here, is actually the cross of this EMA. So I want to keep an eye on this. Let's put that little flag here. Boom. This little EMA crossing is a very important area for me right now, because even though the 1 minute doesn't provide us a lot of useful data for the long term, over the next few hours, what happens here is going to give me the direction of what happens on the 4 and 6 hour charts, right? So again, we're finding a lot of heavy, let's see, you can see this more clearly on the 15-minute and the 30-minute charts. So right now, I'll scroll to the 15-minute. We'll move this flag here so we can, this is where we're marking the cross of the 1 minute is right here. And again, so on the 15-minute, the EMA has started to point up, and it looks like it's going to actually try to break above it. Now, this is interesting because here we have another layer of support around 77.34. That's where we put our next alert. So I feel that this is definitely going to come up and test the 77.44 area on the EMA. Man, we're paying attention to the EMA, not the actual price of Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin on the 15-minute chart just went short. So I suspect that as this EMA comes up to test this area, this is where the price is going to come down to. And this is going to become that pivotal area. That's why we put that alert in at this particular spot, is because I think that's going to be very important to keep an eye on. So, oh, did you guys get all that crazy flashy flash? Or is that just me? I think that's just me. Okay, anyways, so let's take a look at the 30, the 40, and then back out to the hour, and then I'll take a few of your guys' questions. Thank you for joining us. It's Sunday morning here in Costa Rica. It's approximately 7:50 a.m. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. We've got a little bit of rain coming in from the east. Anyways, let's take a few of your guys' questions, but like I said, again, I just want to scroll back out through the time frames and get that adjusted level. So there's actually, on the 30-minute right now, there's a lot of support right where we are. So this $7,900 area is actually crucial to pay attention to, at least on the 30-minute. When it comes out to the hour, let's see if it's the same spot on the hour. You actually, if you scroll out, you have a lot of, see on the hourly chart, if you actually, let's hold on, let's make sure we get more data in here before I do that. Okay, so here's the hourly chart. We can see all the way back here to March 11th, March 25th, right? So this is when we were down around $3,800. This was just before that big breakout on that descending triangle that we had. We had these nice big spikes. We could even have considered that this was probably wave 1, 3, and this is like just a crazy parabolic wave 5. That's my guess. Now, there's a question that comes into place is this going parabolic? And like I said, it could just run to $100,000. That's why I'm going to go on the AF front and say, because I have no idea who's where in their portfolio, just finding exposure to this space on a consistent basis is the best way to go. So if every month you've got an extra 500 bucks, throw it into Bitcoin, throw it into Litecoin, do whatever the fuck you want to do, but just make sure you're learning as much as possible. Learn more. Chart review. Okay. So on the hourly, we've hit a very, very key point. Again, because there's a lot of data, again, with the $3,200 mark in line, there's a lot of data on the volume profile that wants to bring us back down to $3,800 to $5,100. Again, that might not happen. We might be in just a brand new area that says, you know, this is headed into a parabolic movement. I mean, okay, let's take a look at this from the weekly chart. You know, because look, ladies and gentlemen, since day one, I've thought Bitcoin could go to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, not day one. When I bought it at 90, I had no fucking clue what I was doing. But the first time it ran to $1,000, and then, well, let's be more clear about this. At the first time it ran to $1,000 around 2013, I thought it was just going to go straight to $100,000 then, because I had no fucking clue about technical analysis at all. I didn't even know you could look at charts necessarily. Like, this was in 2012, 2013. I was just buying shit. That's fucking crazy, man. I bought stocks in the weed game at that point too, from Tweed, and you know, just stupid shit. Like, actually they ended up doing fairly well, but the point of it is I had no idea what I was doing. I was just doing stuff. And that's a great way to go. That's, again, why I suggest if you don't know what you're doing, you know, ladies and gentlemen, don't wait for, oh, that's the best price to buy in. Just start to educate yourself about what the hell is happening, because this is a financial revolution that's valuable, not just because of the technology, but because of the concept. If you really take it to heart, this is a reformatting of wealth, of richness. And that's a very internal concept. The way one person views wealth or richness next to the other is drastically different. I have coffee with my mentor this morning, and again, his fucking door is worth more than most people's houses. This guy's door, it's like whatever. It's like a 1,500-year-old door from a Tibetan monastery. It's all hand carved. It's got all the fucking Hindu and deities in the pantheon of all, like Krishna and Vishnu. This thing is gorgeous, right? So everybody's coming from a totally different fucking place, depending on who I'm talking to. So I've realized that over the last little while, I have to make these broader statements. So again, you know, guys, I think if you're interested in what Bitcoin's doing, you know, sign up for TradingView, follow us, follow the other people, aggregate as much content as you possibly can. Don't take one person's idea and say, oh, that's it. Because if it suits what you want it, what you think it should be, like if I want it to go down to $1,000 and that's all you bet on, then I don't know, you know, there's nothing that can really hold you back from making a poor decision, because you've come up to your own conclusion and all you're doing is finding data that basically supports that. It's called like a confirmation bias, essentially. So if you have confirmation bias, you know, you're going to only find the answers that you were originally looking for. So what I suggest is everybody find everyone that's arguing against each other. You know, there's even like I said, there's a high probability, or sorry, let's not say a high, but there's a probability that we come back down to $1,000. And I showed this yesterday with the, who's I following? Hefe Khan. So again, you know, there's some really interesting sentiments. You know, we've got a lot of long-term traders that were really confused by Bitcoin's movement through 6,000, but also the length of the bear markets itself. On the screen right now, I'm showing here the last bear market was 630 days approximately, and this one to the extension based off how many days the bull market was versus the previous bull market, they should have extended. See, first bull market 742 days followed by a 630 day bear market. Here we went to 812, but we've only made it to approximately, I can't measure this right now. I wish I could measure it, but well, actually I can, I guess. If we go to log chart and measure it to right to where we are now on the weekly, it's significantly less. I think it's like 600 days or something like this. We'll find out in a sec. Price and time range right from here, close enough. Yeah, we're approximately 525 days. So we're almost 200 days short of the extent of if we have a similar extension in the bear market length. And that's again, the reason why it's important is because, look, this may not be right. We may not go back to $1,200, but there's other conflicting data here that shows points of extreme interest, because we've seen cyclical patterns and linear movements in Bitcoin before. It's always followed a linear movement. So for it to break out of that now is kind of confusing. Now, again, we have this EMA line, which has been strong support. So there's a few conflicting areas where, okay, well, the EMA actually suggests that we've gone into a bull market, but the length of the time frames don't. You know, we've got our MVTs are maxed out, our MFI, the RSI is breaking above into previous highs not seen since the peak of the bull markets. Again, what I suggest everyone do is don't just pick like, oh, it's going to go to $1,200, it's going to go to $100,000. Just aggregate your own as much content as you can, and then from there, I think just consistent exposure to this space is important based off what you can add to your portfolio, right? If you've got $100 million in the bank, what you fucking add to your portfolio is going to be significantly different to what someone else can risk. One person's 1% risk might destroy another person's, like, would be an entire person's fucking lifetime of building and saving and growing. You know what I mean? It's impossible for us to aggregate content for you guys clearly, because there's so many different levels of investors that might be watching this space. Anyways, well, let's keep this in mind. What I want to do is just remind everyone to stay patient, to stay calm, don't FOMO in. I think finding consistent exposure, consistent education, consistent investment of yourself into this space is the smartest way to go, because this is the internet in the beginning of the days. And, you know, there's nothing you can really get away from other than learning. Like, if you were to have started an internet company that did affiliate marketing back in 2000, I have friends that make tens of millions of dollars a year just building websites, right? So I think people need to realize, you know, when a market is emerging, there's a bunch of stuff that you can really capitalize on that doesn't necessarily mean you might be a trader. Maybe it doesn't mean you make your wealth from Bitcoin, but these are opportunities everywhere in the space to become more wealthy, right? Bitcoin's not your only opportunity. Maybe 5 years from now, you create a company that turns into a $180 million a year company because you made some really cool fucking pineapple fizzy drink that's all organic. I have no fucking clue what it might be, but please remember that if there are good ideas to be found, you might find them. So just keep working, stay optimistic, be nice to one another, give your loved ones a hug, and remind yourself that you're probably already vastly wealthier than you imagine. And that's why I remind everyone, go outside, enjoy the sunshine, get your fucking toes wet, because if you have $1 million and this other person doesn't have $1 million and you're both standing out in the rain in the middle of nowhere, if they're enjoying the rain and dancing, they're fucking wealthier than you are. I don't care how much money you have. If you do not learn how to be grateful for what you're going through and what you have, your money means fucking jack shit in this world, because you cannot buy character or class. You can dress yourself up as you might appear to be that way, but it's very noticeable once you meet these people that they do not have it. Anyways, this is Teal with the Arcane Bear. I know this episode's a little short today, but I do have to do a little bit of editing as well. So please join our Telegram channel for the community in the links below. You can join our free newsletter by going to arcanebear.com. If you want to join our private Telegram, our private newsletter, and our private kind of bear den notes, you can go to arcanebear.com/club. This is where we store basically a lot of our inflection data. You know, for Raven, like I'll show you guys. I have to log in. I'm not even logged in on this side. Anyways, basically we show ins and outs. Like for Raven, again, it says very explicitly none of it is investment advice. But again, if you guys are interested, it supports the channel. We build usually about a chapter every 2 weeks about trading for our book called Non-Advice. We've got a deep dive once every month by our legal counsel who's going into Tron this month. So it's like a big 25-page deep fucking review from all angles of the company, the way they got to where they are, how they funded it, all this fun stuff. It's really brilliant. So keep your guys' eyes on that. I'm really, really grateful for all your support. It means a lot to me. I'll take a quick look at some of your guys' questions before I dive off. It says, you guys had information on Matic. Yeah, our entire Bear family were talking about Matic the last 3 or 4 days. So it's not always me. Again, there are a bunch of other great traders, other great analysts, and other people that are learning. And that's where you want that mesh between those two, because that's when everybody's learning and growing most effectively. Robert Kenny says, I like this guy subbed. I appreciate it. Again, your guys' support means the world to me. I'm pretty ridiculous. I think I scare a lot of people away because of my ridiculous behavior. So I really appreciate the support. Nice, you can see the EMA on the 1 minute crossed here, so keep an eye on that. iBallistic Cat says, can you sort our membership? Dude, I got you to message them. They messaged you back. I'm not sure why you guys are having a difficult time with it, but I don't deal with any of the customer service. Not my job. Not the thing I want to do, just the way I go. I'm not, again, the reason why you're having troubles is not because we can't sort out your membership. It's because you did something that violated our community rules. So until the community sorts out how they get you back into even our general free community Telegram, there's not a whole lot I can tell you, iBallistic Cat. So please, again, message our admins. Hopefully they can help you. But again, if you guys violate our community guidelines by posting spam, or I guess in this particular case it was like illicit content, you're gone, motherfucker. Our space is not freedom of, this is not the free reign internet. If you come into our family den and you start spewing shit, we're just going to kick you out. And that might be it. I'm not sure if that's it. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm not the group administrators there. There's like a bunch of other administrators. I'm just a part of the Arcane Bear family at this point. So keep that in mind. I really appreciate all the support. We'll do our best to help you out, iBallistic Cat. But again, that's not, I can't help you with that because I just don't have the time. I have a bunch of other shit I have to sort out. Although I'm sure all the other Arcane Bear admins will hear that and they'll check their inboxes, and I'm pretty sure they already emailed you. Last few questions. Will you check out Populous? It's not on the charts. Can't look at it right now. Hey, will you make a quick chart assessment of Cliff High's data about the mystery coin? Would be Tezos. I'll try to do that maybe tomorrow. Remember, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Hit that little notification button. That way, anytime we go live, we'll be able to return you guys with more content, more data. Again, we do this every day. Because every day something new happens. That's why I don't make any long-term projections. We just look at the potentials. Again, I've said this over and over and again. I think Bitcoin's going to go to hundreds of millions of dollars potentially. So for me, whether it's at $1,000, $4,000, $8,000, it doesn't fucking matter. As long as you guys are learning more and understanding, how to find exposure to this space, learning your own risk assessment strategies, and coming up with a better conclusion of what the hell is going on in these markets. There's a lot of guys that cover news. You got Box Mining, Crypto News, Crypto Lark, Data Dash. There's all these other great YouTubers that cover news. I really love the charts. It's technical, it's colorful, it's a beautiful place for me. I like playing in the waves like a dolphin. It reminds me of like jumping out of an airplane. It's a lot of fun, brings in some adrenaline. So I'm very grateful for all you guys' support. Steel with the Arcane Bear, signing off for the rest of the day. We hope you enjoy yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very, very grateful for your support. This is Steel with the Arcane Bear.